All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to all my subscribers and welcome to everybody around the world. So I'm not going to make this a long video where I read quotes from things and all of that. Just a quick overview and a quick reach out. So basically, everybody's been talking about Jesus returning or the potential return for like 2,000 years. Every Christian knows, that various people, lots of people throughout time, even people on the street corner have warned that Jesus is coming soon. It's been said virtually every year, probably going back near 2,000 years. Everybody's aware of that. All Christians are aware of that. Most people are tired of hearing somebody come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh, I have a theory and I think he's going to come at this point." And by now the tradition is, traditionally most Christians now tend to denounce anybody who is a date setter or anything like that. So the world of Christianity today is, full of people, like the vast majority, they're not looking for any dates, and they are ready to denounce people who suggest dates. We have a lot of famous and unfortunately famous examples like Harold Camping and the like, right? The foundation, the origins of the Adventist Church were founded on the Great Disappointment, essentially. There's a lot of very famous examples of this. But I do want to warn everybody, like I've said before, and before I just start waffling on, I do have a book published that you can get on Amazon around the world. Okay, it's my second book now. The first one's a systematic theology of the original Christianity as the Bible teaches it. Very, very good book, a concise systematic theology with theodicy, apologetics, Christology, and the works. But more recently, I did my book on 2023 to 2024 Rapture and End Days, 7 Scriptural Pillars of Proof. I think that's the full title. But if you go to Amazon, just search for my author name of Enoch the Witness. So, anyways, that way you can find the book. So I'll just refer anybody listening. That book there, the 2023 to 2024 one, that has all the information, all the verses, everything laid out right there. Bam. It's an excellent little book. And I'll refer everybody to that because I did not only the hard work in discovering the things that I discovered and compiling the other things and putting together the book so that it can act as a wonderful, concise resource for the planet to learn these amazing things from about the imminent arrival of Jesus. So I did the hard work. Please, utilize that opportunity. It'll be right there in your hands. But nonetheless, even though so many people have said it before, I've said it over the last 6 or 7 years on YouTube, warning people with probably between 50 to 100 different live streams and videos about the arrival of Jesus and how the prophecies of Daniel and many other prophecies in the Bible prove that 2023 and 2024 are the end times. So it could happen at the end of 2023. It could happen at some point during 2023 or even in 2024. I explain it thoroughly in the book. Okay, I'm not here today, like I said, to quote things and all that. I was giving a quick synopsis of everything in the current situation. But Christianity really needs to hear this evidence. Let me just check my time. 3:33. That's pretty interesting when I checked. I really, really urge all the churches. So, like, no matter what background you're from, I get people from all religious backgrounds watching my videos, not enough Christians watching them. And what needs to happen is people from all different denominations and churches need to take this book, take the teachings. They're also all for free on my channels, Enoch the Witness main channel, and on this channel, Enoch the Witness 2023. All those videos and stuff are on there for free, but the most condensed, compiled, clarified, any errors ironed out and all that, the best final product is the book. It's $11.11, 11.11, right? And then you have your own copy with everything, the whole shebang right there in your hands, right? A lot easier than watching 50 to 100 videos that could be an hour long each, right? When some of the information's older and I might have made corrections and it becomes a burdensome task. But nonetheless, all the videos are there for free. They do recommend to get the book because, like I said, I went through the effort of compiling, refining, double checking, triple uber checking everything. I got all the maths broken down on the pages in steps so that everybody can digest it easily. I've got blank sections at the end of each chapter so that people can take notes upon request. I was asked to do that. So it's a very, very good little study book. More importantly, it has all these great discoveries. So like I show in that book and on my channels, 2023, 2024 is the time of the end days. For one example, one of the 7 pillars of scriptural proof is that the 6,000 years are all mapped out in the Bible. I lay it out in one of my chapters in my book. I think it's the first chapter. And all the verses right there, all the numbers, everything, it's undeniable. It literally is all mapped out, all 6,000 years. And there isn't a squeak of wiggle room. There isn't even a 1 year possibility of wiggle. It's all there mapped out right there. And that's just one of the 7 amazing things. Out of the 7 pillars of proof, 5 of them were my own unique discovery, which nobody else has discovered. 2 of the others were discovered before me by other people. But nonetheless, I wanted to include them because they're vital and they're important. And this is all about the greater glory for God and the overall proof for everything. So I included those 2. They're essential to everything. They're from the prophecies of Daniel. But I also added a lot of strength to one of them. One of those 2 pillars cannot really be added to. So it's a very simple pillar. But the other pillar, as you see if you read the book, I provide a lot more. With all the study and research I did, I found even more scriptural evidence to back up what the others had already found before me, right? So I helped strengthen that pillar. And altogether, there's 7, right? 7 monumental discoveries, to each their own, and all compiled make one, immovable monument of proof. And like I've said before, and like I say in the book, there's no way mathematically that these things could be a coincidence. Even just one of the things, like say for example, if all of these things are a big coincidence, and the fact that the 7 pillars, some of them actually connect over to each other, as you'll see better explained in the book. I mean, these type of things just make it impossible to occur coincidentally. For example, the 6,000 years all being fulfilled and being dictated, mapped out, and given in the Bible and all of that, that's pretty hard to say that that's coincidental. I mean, a lot of these verses came from different authors over different epochs, different time periods, different centuries, or even different millennia. But nonetheless, from the books of Genesis and the early books of the Torah, I mean, it'd be pretty hard to coincidentally end up with 6,000 years when that figure is never actually stated verbatim in the Bible, like, hey, there's going to be 6,000 years. This is something people have believed based upon the pattern of 6 days creating and then 1 day rest, and a day is like 1,000 years to God, right? But nonetheless, going by the numbers that the Bible for some reason is meticulously provided, we can see all 6,000 years mapped out. So that cannot be a coincidence. But even if some of these 7 are coincidences, let's just say, if the naysayer is to say, well, it's all just one big coincidence of 7 coincidences, and even their interconnections are all just coincidences. I gave the example of one of the 7, the 6,000 years. It's pretty hard to say that would be a coincidence. You know what I mean? Down to the precise single-digit year is pretty hard to say that's coincidence. But even if you were to just say, oh, well, it's just a coincidence, then what about all the other 6, right? The other 6, they're historical events that had to transpire in order for these things to be, the prophecies to be fulfilled. If these events didn't take place and take place exactly when they did, then the prophecies wouldn't be fulfilled. But all together, these 7 pillars, and respectively to each their own, the prophecies in them, it's just absolutely outstanding. There's no way that collectively they could all be a mass of coincidences. And what is the logical conclusion to that observation? It's that these things had to be constructed. They had to be designed. It's not necessarily that God or whatever higher force is pulling puppet strings to make these things happen. It's just that God warned us what would happen because he knows all things. So he warned us that these things would occur. God gave us the meted out time periods, to measure how many years it would be and so forth, what events would transpire to mark the start of these periods and the end of these periods. He dictated all of that to us meticulously, as I detail in the book. And we can see that the historical events that he said would transpire did occur at those points. And when we look at the sum of years for the periods of times, they line up with these historical events in profoundly significant ways. I mean, it's these biblical discoveries altogether, these 7 pillars, in all honesty, they eclipse probably any other biblical discovery, theological or whatnot, that's maybe ever been made. It's on the level of the Dead Sea Scrolls. In its own sense, you could argue it's greater than the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, the end days and the judgment and the arrival of Jesus and God are the biggest, the most important topic, one could argue, right? I mean, how could it not be? Because if those days arrive and you're not ready and you fail, that's it, your chance is gone. So I mean, it really is the most relevant and most important topic that's out there. And you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, all the proof is there. I go through it in my book and my videos on my channel. The book is the best resource. I'll just say it again because everything's concise, compiled, clarified, checked, corrected, and everything is needed. But it simply has to occur. There's no way that those things are coincidence. It must be constructed. It has to be constructed by a higher power. Only an omnipotent higher power could even pull off such a feat. That one would be God. So if God is behind all of this design and construction, hence why he told us about it all and this design in the prophecies, then it's going to happen. Okay. And we have, if it happens in 2023, we have, what is it, 5 months left now? If it's going to happen at some point in 2024, then we have up to 17 months. You know what I mean? But in this period of time, it could happen at any moment. And the Bible warns us that people will be saying peace and charity, and then there will be sudden destruction. It also warns us it'll be like when Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, which happened just like that. People were celebrating, living their lives, and then sudden destruction came from the heavens with fiery rocks and everything. Be the same way. We are warned about this in the New Testament. And also we are warned that it would be like the days of Noah, where everybody is celebrating, doing their normal daily activities, oblivious to the fact that, hey, bam, it's going to come suddenly. Okay, if you were to take a poll right now of the average Christian out there, the majority of Christians would say, oh no, there's going to be a lot of evidence and signs. Most people believe 7 years of tribulation that are going to occur with very obvious things occurring, they think, before the arrival of Jesus. They think that there's going to be, most people think that there's going to be 7 years of this gloom at the hands of an antichrist figure and all that, right? I'm not here to get into that theologically because I covered that in videos and in my book already, so I'm not getting into that. But that's what most people believe. Like I said, if you take a poll, most people would think, oh, it's not going to happen soon. We got to wait for all these years of doom and gloom at the hands of the Antichrist, and it's just not going to happen. They're going to be going around living their daily lives. The Antichrist 7-year kingdom will never come because the final beast kingdom has already occurred. It was Islam. That's another question. It's persisting up until the end, as Daniel's vision of the statue with the toes said it would. But anyways, I'm not getting into all that stuff here. But people who think there's going to be a buffer of warning signs and very obvious things, or a buffer of 7 years, you're not going to be ready. You're going to be living your daily lives, doing all your normal activities, oblivious. You're going to be saying peace and charity. Like I said, the 7 years of doom and gloom aren't going to come. And depending where you live, some countries are going through very bad things, don't get me wrong. But the 7 years of this Antichrist doom and gloom rule is not going to come. So it's just going to be what you have now, just continuing over this next period. It's going to be your daily life. And then suddenly, bam, sudden destruction, like Jesus warned us. So this is undeniable. That's scriptural. So I'm just trying again, once again, for like the millionth time to warn people that, no matter what your church or is telling you, or no matter what you perceive when you read the Bible, most people believe something because they've read something before or heard someone else's opinion and they've considered it and it's digested into what they think and rework their framework. Spit out all the dogma, even if some of it might be true and accurate. Just spit everything out, spit it all out, and then start afresh from zero, okay, and work like that. That way, at least you spat out all the dogma and you won't get subliminally influenced by things that you've heard and this and that there, right? But at the end of the day, read the book. All the evidence is there. It's going to happen. God has said it will happen, and it will happen in that time frame. I don't know the month. I don't know the week. I don't know the day. I don't know the hour. I don't know that at all. Nobody will. We won't even know the season, I don't think. But we know the time period because God gave us the exact numbers. Okay? And the only reason there's a range for this that is as large as it is because, as I explained in the book, you have to allow, logically, you have to allow for up to a year flux. The best quick micro, super rapid illustration for this and explanation is if a significant event, which is acting as a marker point from where you take a measure of biblical time for a prophecy, right? So say you got a chunk of 2,000 years, just for a random example, 2,000-year period, it's going to start at some special event, okay? That's all fine and dandy if the event occurred in, say, the year 2000, let's just say, right? To use simple numbers. If the event occurred in the year 2000, that's all fine and dandy to say that. But if it occurred in a January or in a June or in a December, that would make a difference if you're talking about adding up, lengths of time of, say, 2000 years. It wouldn't necessarily go by the year, the number of the year. Okay, if the event, for example, happened in January of the year 2000, and you're going to take a measure of 2000 years from that point, that is logically including the year 2000. But if that event occurred at the end of 2000, let's say in December at some point, then it's up to a year lost. Okay, so if that event, let's just say, occurred towards the end of December, and you're to take a measure of 2000 years, which isn't to be tinkered with, it's a measure of 2000 years, you have a year of flux. And because most of all of these historical events don't have the months and this and that pinned down, we have to logically allow for a year of flux. That's why even if it was to happen, and because nobody knows the month, week, day, or hour or anything, nobody knows at what point in 2023 it will occur. It could very well, by all fairness, occur at the end of 2023. That would be the end of the 6,000 years, but it would be the end of the 6,000 years depending on the year flux principle that I just said. What month did we take the measure from? Who knows, right? You can't. That's talking about the birth of Seth way back there 6,000 years ago. You don't know what month he was born in. You will never know. So you have to allow for that time of flux. So I'm just showing and casting some light to help illustrate the realisticness and the seriousness and the depth of all of this, right? So it is worthy of consideration. These are veritable, is that the right word? Like, these are, I can't say verified because not enough people are looking at it and verifying it, but you know what I mean? These are real, bona fide, biblical, groundbreaking, history changing discoveries that prove arguably the most important theological aspect to religion, which is the end days, the day where you're not going to have another chance to change. You know what I mean? While you're alive, you have all the time to change. When the end day comes and the Lord has arrived and you're being judged, it is too late. It'd be pretty important, if God did tell us when that would roughly happen, it would be very important to know when it will roughly happen so that we can ensure that we are ready in time. Because if we're oblivious and his people perish for a lack of knowledge, like he says, he didn't say that for no reason, right? And Jesus warned, if you're not ready, waiting, and watching, and when I come, if you haven't reformed and if you're not ready, waiting, and watching, he will come upon you like a thief. Which directly, he says that Revelation 3, and it's elsewhere. I think it's in Luke 12, but it's definitely in Revelation 3. I just can't remember the exact Luke verse, right? I think it's Luke 12. But anyways, what that is implying is if you're not ready, watching, and waiting, you will be caught by surprise. He will come upon you like a thief. This makes perfect logical sense. And it's not adding to what Jesus said, because he says, if you are not watching, ready, and waiting, I will come like a thief and catch you by surprise and cut you off if it's so deserved and all of that. To each their own, he says different things. To one of the assemblies, he says, I will fight against you with the sword of my mouth if you're not ready, waiting, and watching and have reformed. Right? So that's what we need to do. If we have to reform, be ready, waiting, and watching, and we're not doing it, then what's going to happen? We will be caught by surprise. That's why it says it'll be like the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. It'll be like the days of Noah, okay, when the flood was coming, when the heavenly destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was coming. It will come like sudden destruction, and the people will be oblivious. They'll be living their daily lives. We were warned, and Christians have to heed this warning, okay? God has said all those things, and he's given us the numbers because he has told us when it would happen. Daniel 12 says it all and maps it all out. Daniel 12 has the longest period of time in any biblical prophecy ever given anywhere in the Bible, and it's all in Daniel 12 in verse 11 and 12, and you could also argue 13. The numbers are in verses 11 and 12. It's initially a period of 1290 years, which is from when Nebuchadnezzar overthrew the temple and stole the temple implements and put an end to the continual sacrifice, which was, as history confirms, in 602 BC. 1290 years later is exactly when Islam, the final beast kingdom, had conquered Israel and did the desecration of the holy place by building the abomination, which is the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. That's exactly 1290 years, like God told Daniel would happen. And then from this point, we have the measure that is then given in the next, in the verses just above that, I think in verse 7, when Daniel asked how long till the end of these wonders, and he's told 3.5 times, which is 1260 years. 1260 years from 688 AD will take you precisely to 1948, when Islam lost its dominion over Israel. Israel was reborn as a nation, and the Jews and the Christians, the people of God, got to return there. Okay? So these are, and I go into greater detail in the book, and there's way more scriptural evidence to back it all up. That's just a quick little buzz through, right? But that's the Daniel 12 prophecy. And he then says that there's an additional 75 years, taking up to the 1335th year, which is the end. And he calls it the end of days, or the end, whatever it is that he terms it as. He clarifies that it is the end. And then he says in verse 12, I think it is, blessed is he who waits earnestly and comes to the days 1335. Blessed is he, you go on to your lot at the end of days. That's basically what it says. I'm not reading it, right? It's just from memory. So that is God's instruction, like I said a million times, to know the number. I mean, why would he tell you a number? If let me say this again for those who haven't heard me say this example before. Pretend we're talking about a school, and there's a student and a teacher, the head teacher. The student goes to the teacher and says, oh, head teacher, how much longer will the school semester go on for, like the period of the school year, and till the end of semester? Because usually at the end of semester or the end of term, whatever you guys call it in your country, you would have a big final exam, right? So in this example, in this analogy, right, in this little parable, you could say the student will ask his teacher, how much longer will the school year go on for, and when is the final exam, right? Comparably, that is what Daniel did in chapter 12. He asked God, how long for these time periods. God told him that span of time, which is 1290 plus 1260. And then Daniel said, basically how long until the end? And God says, okay, it's additional 75 years, takes you to 1335. That is the end. And blessed are you who counts those days and comes to the last one. That is the synopsis of Daniel 12. Okay, so it is all mapped out there. That's 1290 years plus 1335 years. That's God has mapped out all the way from Nebuchadnezzar overthrowing the temple in 602 BC all the way up to 2023 AD, possibly the end of 2023 AD. And again, depending on that month, year of flux. But he's given that time period. That is the longest prophecy, whatever 1290 plus 1335 totals. That's the longest period of time that's ever given in a biblical prophecy. That is actually, out of the 6,000 years of mankind, that's a pretty huge chunk. Let me see if I can do it real quick in my head. We got 2,000, and we got 290 plus 335. So we got at least 2,500. Then we got plus 90 and 35. So it's like 2,700 years. That's the longest period of time given in a biblical prophecy. Okay, and it's all mapped out. He's told us the year. It's going to be 2023. That's precisely 1,335 years from 688 AD, when the Dome of the Rock was built on the Temple Mount. It was built on the Temple Mount by the 10th king of Islam, by the 10th ruler. Okay, you had the first ruler, then you had the next, by the 11th. It's in the book. I'm just going by memory here, but it's all mapped out in the book. But the Bible tells us, Daniel and John told us about 10 kings. Okay, it keeps repeating that there would be 10 kings of this final beast kingdom, that they would all rise up within the same hour and give their honor over to the beast kingdom, right? Now, the first 10 rulers of Islam all rose up within a period of, I think it was under 50 years. It's not far off from 1 hour, which would be the equivalent of roughly 42 hours. If a day is 1,000 years, then 1 hour would be roughly 42 point something years, something like that. Now, the fact that all those first 10 rulers rose up in 47 or 48 years or whatever it was, it's not that far off. And when you work out the percentage of the, inaccuracy, it's like minute. It's not even worth measuring. So that is a striking revelation that I talk about in detail in my book. So we're warned about 10 kings. We're told in Daniel that there would be an 11th that comes after the 10, and that to the 11th is given the period of 3.5 times. Well, it was this 11th ruler who was the 10th after the initial founder of that faith, okay, That 11th king is the one, if I'm remembering correctly from memory, he is the one who built the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount in 688. And then from that point, we had 1260 years until 1948, when those wonders, those terrors ended. So in 1948, the rebirth of Israel. Also, remember, in 1948, you just had the rise of Hitler and all of that trying to wipe out Judaism and the Jews, right? A great world war in which, 40 million or whatever many people died. Don't forget that had just occurred as well. So 1948 is pretty stunning. That is more than pretty stunning. That is uncanny that we can see all this mapped out. And that's just one of the pillars, well, two of the pillars that I've covered there out of the seven, okay, that are all mentioned in my book. It's pretty much undeniable that it should occur in this next period of roughly, between now and 17 months or so from now. It has to happen, and the churches have to wake up to this reality. I've spent near 7 years putting out all these dozens and dozens of videos. I've done my part trying to warn people. I'm broke. I'm poor. I have no savings. I have no money. I'm dead broke. I can't even pay my rent. I haven't been able to for years. Okay, so I'm not able to go out there and do all the things that other people might be able to do to help spread the awareness. But I did what I could, which was make dozens and dozens and probably hundreds of hours of live streams and videos, all for free for people for like 7 years, warning people about all of this. Okay, and just found more and more evidence in the last year, couple years as well, right, to make it even better. Right, but I've done that part. I've written my book now, 2 books altogether, but I've written this book about 2023, 2024, the end days, like I said. Go search for it on Amazon. My author name, Enoch the Witness. And I've done my part, right? I'll continue to do my part. I haven't given up after I wrote the book. I'm still out here making videos trying to raise awareness of it. But don't believe my word right here. Go test my word. Go. Better to test it going looking at the book. It's not just a pitch so I can make a little bit of money. I only make a few dollars on each book. The book is very cheap. It's only $11.11, like I said before. That is pretty reasonable. It's a summation of about 20 years hard work. Is work that I couldn't even do by myself because God had to lead me in all this. Even others who know my story have testified that. Don't take my word for it. People have told me that in the comment section, right? So this is a divinely led discovery, group of discoveries that are groundbreaking. They need to go down in the history books. Like if the world doesn't end, they need to be recorded, because these are very, bona fide biblical discoveries. They deserve recognition. They need recognition by their own nature. They have to be heard. Like I said, this is on the level or possibly above the magnitude of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls only really gave us the same books we always had. They just helped prove, they were half a millennia or 1,000 years older than we afore thought. That's all. I mean, they're dated to 300 to 400 BC. Most people believe, anyways, the Septuagint was written around that time, anyways, or whatever text it was at the time. We just don't have a physical copy of it. So it only extended their lifespan by a little bit, the credibility of their lifespan. Otherwise, nobody believes scripturally as theology any of the other books that were also found there. So my point is valid that, arguably this is of greater magnitude than the Dead Sea Scrolls because, God gave us the Bible. We've had it for thousands of years. That's all good. Dead Sea Scrolls, we find them. We got more copies of the same old Bible. It's meaningless, if you know what I mean, unless people can utilize it. It's like God gives you a law, gives you a message. It itself is not meaningless, but it is rendered as meaningless if you do not utilize it, right? So when such a discovery is made, it needs to be heralded. It needs to be understood. It needs to be heard. The churches, the Christians, the people, everybody needs to hear these things. You could have skeptics and atheists hearing this stuff, a real scientifically minded person, let's just say, and maybe Stephen Hawking, if he had been alive, if he went over, the book and the 7 pillars of discovery and then worked out the mathematical odds for how possible they could be as coincidences, I'm pretty sure he would deduce that this is impossible. It had to be intelligently designed, right? You could have people like that, but those type of people never hear the message if the message doesn't spread to them. Okay, so I've done my part, like I said, for 7 years now. I've been warning people. I've made hundreds of hours of videos and live streams. I've written 2 books now, one of which is about what I'm talking about. The other one's just theology, right? But still, I've written the book. I've done my part. I will continue to do my part until the day it does or doesn't happen. Okay, and that is the only wise thing to do. If this is what God has revealed, The only thing we should do is reform like we are expecting it to happen. And if for whatever godforsaken reason it doesn't happen, I also actually I should mention I detail in the book I have a chapter devoted to possible other scenarios. Like I said, a year flux can extend it up to a year, right? That's why I say we should wait during 2024 as well, if nothing happens in the remainder of 2023, as I explain in the book. However, even if nothing happens in 2024, I show a reasonable explanation for 2025. And then for 2026 and 2027, I think it is, the further away you go, the little bit less plausible, in my honest opinion, it gets, like I say in the book. But nonetheless, you can't rule it out, and it's worth considering, right? But it should happen 2023, 2024, going by what is said. Let us prepare like it's going to. Okay, like it's going to. We claim so much that we believe in God and all of this. Well, God told us to get ready to count the days, and blessed is he who's waiting and watching, right? If you go look up all those related terms, wait, watch, blessed, and this and that there, you're going to find something all in common. All the verses, and I've covered this in so many videos, where it says, our blessed hope, and it's talking about the arrival of Jesus. Our blessed hope, and where Daniel 12, God said, blessed is he who waits earnestly and comes to the 1335th day. If you're waiting for something, you're hoping for something. Hope is, and faith are believing in something that hasn't come yet, but you believe that it will come to pass. Even the Bible says it like that, right? So having that hope that and waiting for it to happen in belief, that is that blessed hope for that arrival of Jesus. And but the same words used in Daniel 12, blessed is he who waits and comes to that day, the end of day, that marks the end of days. So I've said it so many times before. There's so many different verses, and Jesus is warning in Revelation 3, right? He gives an edict to each of the seven assemblies, which I believe logically represent the seven assemblies of Christianity in the end days, because they're all end days edicts. He's saying reform, and if you don't, I will come against you with the sword of my mouth. I'll come upon you like a thief. That's definitely the end days. It's not 2,000 years ago he's talking about, right? So there are edicts to the seven different assemblies that represent Christianity altogether. And he rebukes all of them except for one, Philadelphia, whoever and whatever Philadelphia represents, probably those who actually got the theology right. But nonetheless, he rebukes all the others and threatens them all. Okay, so each of them get threatened. And virtually every single one of them is told to reform, or else he will come upon them like a thief. Okay, so, and in these verses, we're told from the mouth of Jesus that we have to be essentially waiting, depending on which verse and which, when you're looking at, right? But generally speaking, we have to be ready, waiting, and watching. Okay? You can't be ready, waiting, and watching unless you know roughly when something's going to happen. I think one of the best examples is you have a friend arriving on a flight at an airport. Okay? If you don't know at all when he might be coming in, there's no way you can go there and wait for him. You could, but you'd just be perpetually twiddling your thumbs while you sit in the airport lounge waiting. Right? But if he calls you up and tells you, hey, I'm going to be coming here after, say, 1,335 days, right? And even if you don't have it pinpointed to the day or the week or whatever, at least you have something to go by. That's the basic gist of this. You have to have something to go by. And when we are told from God pretty much precisely when he will arrive, we have reason to go to the airport and wait for him. You follow me? And if somebody asks, hey, what are you waiting for? You say, oh, my friend told me that he's coming. He will be arriving at some point, right? And he'll ask, oh, do you know what flight he's coming in on? No, I don't know the flight. I don't know the flight number. I don't know the hour he'll be coming. I don't even know the day he'll be coming. I don't even know the week he'll be coming. But I know that he's coming because he's told me the year that he should be coming in, okay? That's the difference, right? That is the difference. So anyways, that might not be the absolute best example, but it illustrates the point well enough, right? So let me check my time. 34 minutes. That's good enough. The churches need to hear the evidence. The evidence. I don't have the hours to go through all the evidence here, right? I've already done all that hard work. It's already in all my videos. More importantly, it's in the book, like I said, in the best, concise, correct, and everything form, right? The churches need to hear that evidence. If just one book went to, just say, a number of churches from different denominations, and if the people actually read the books, because the book does not touch on theology, it only argues against the 7-year tribulation and one or two things like that there. It's the 7-year tribulation and the rule of the Antichrist during that time. That is the only offhand theological thing I get into. I don't touch on theology. And I open in my introduction talk about how I want to keep this like universal so that anybody from any background in Christianity can read it. This is about the numbers, it's about the end days, and it's not about theology, right? So this book is not, it's hopefully it's not going to divide or push anybody away, right? This book should be, I would hope, tangible for everybody from every Christian and whatever background. And if each major church got hold of this book and they just read it, that's why I said that there wouldn't be some theological argument unless they so supremely weigh on the 7-year tribulation thing. But hopefully the evidence I present there will prove it to be wrong. It is pretty concise evidence. But nonetheless, I'm not getting into that. If each major church just got it and they read it, they would see the profound, overwhelming evidence. The Holy Spirit in them would tell them to take that message out. They will go preach it to their congregations. They would do that, right? They would do that. So, but I can't do that type of thing by myself, right? And that's all it would take. I have nothing against a preacher reading from the book and reading it to the churches, right? This isn't about money for me. Yes, the book costs $11.11. That's my part in it, and that's all. Amazon takes whatever they take from it. I make a few dollars in each book. This isn't about money for me. But like I said before, I have no savings. I haven't been able to pay rent for years. I have a low income. It's very hard for me. I struggle. I don't get to eat 3 proper meals a day. Usually I just eat like 1.5 or 1. Okay. I have all rights to have a extra supplemental source of income. You know what I mean? Because so many people like to bash. But anyways, it is what it is, right? I can't give out a book for free. It's got to have a price anyways. And I'm making a few dollars on each book. Big deal. It is copyright though. It is global copyright. So you can't get the book and photocopy it. I'm not asking people to go out and buy thousands of copies and hand them out. If you want to do something like that, that's on you. I'm not asking anybody to do that. But all it would take is just somebody to get the book, and you could do your own videos, read from it. If you're reading from the book, just give me credit to say, hey, look, this is the book, blah, 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 by this person. Just give me the acknowledgement that I deserve. That's all you need to do. No money involved. And just, you could read it on your live streams, help spread it through your own means. Go out and read it on the street corner. Go out to a church and read it. Do all that for free, right? You know what I mean? Help spread the message. But if a church leader gets it, they can preach to a congregation. They might have a network of millions or tens of millions or even 100 million around the world. And that's what it would take to get into those powerful hands, for them to see the evidence. And I don't know who could deny it once they see it. Once they see that evidence and then share it, then you will have a huge difference. Right now, I've reached about 250,000 people in the 7 years or so that I've been doing this. That's not good enough. I wish it would be better. I think 250,000 is pathetic compared to how many people are out there in the world. 2.5 billion Christians and only 250,000 people have heard the message. How many of those people even believe it to start with? Who did hear it? That's the other question. But if these church leaders, with the power and connection that they have, would get the message out, it could spread out to everybody, and they could read the book in church to their people. I'm not there asking for any money. Go ahead and do that. Like I said, right? Just give me the credit that I deserve to say, hey, look, you wrote this book, you made the discovery, whatever, right? You know what I mean? Quick, simple, 2 seconds. That's all. Spread the message. The message is what is important, right? And that way, for free, it can be spread out to tens or hundreds of millions of people. Follow me? A mega church leader could go post the information and the discoveries. I'm just saying, I'm not Amazon's lawyer, right? But I think they could, as long as you give credit, I think you could talk about it on a website, in your church sermons, or even in your videos, as long as you acknowledge and give the credit, whatever. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, right? But I think I have no problem with people doing that, right? So I'm pretty sure Amazon won't have a problem with it, right? But the word needs to get out there. It just simply has to. Anyways, let me get going, folks. God bless you all. Everybody better prepare, reform, come out of the darkness, go into the light, flee all the forms of darkness that you used to do, flee it, run away from it, strengthen yourself against it, because when the judgment time comes and this planet is barraged by these fiery rocks from outer space, those who pass in judgment will be taken up and off the earth to a new world, and we'll get to live like the angels do, like the messengers of the heavens. But those who fail in judgment will be stuck here for all that burning and punishment. They'll go off to their next levels of punishment, right? So the best way to save yourself from that day, you know what I mean, is to reform. That's what you got to do. That's what Jesus said. That word is mentioned 53 times in the New Testament. I talk about it in both of my books in greater detail in my systematic theology book. Nonetheless, that's what you theologically have to do. You have to reform. That's what's going to save you. There's no magic involved, right? Jesus' blood on the cross. Jesus didn't die on the cross so that your guilt could be wiped away for no reason. You have to reform. If you're not putting in that effort, I thought of something earlier today that's really good, and I will end on this note, okay? Because I was going to make a prayer to God. Then I thought maybe I won't, like a lot on live, right? But one thing I will say, because it came to me like a little inspiration. A lot of people who claim to follow God claim it with their mouth, but don't follow it with their feet. That's the problem. And reformation is the only solution to that, right? That's what I'll end on. God bless you all. Everybody get ready.